Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2, and we will cover verses 178 to 182. There are two topics covered in these verses: crime and punishment, and making a will or bequest. These are the references. Some of the excerpts which are quoted in this presentation, these are taken from volume 3. Some references to other volumes is also included. And this is our contact. Recap of verse 2, 177. If we remember, we covered a presentation on verse 177. The Quran has drawn our gaze away from physical symbols, for example, the Kaaba, the direction of the assembly for Salat, the gathering for Hajj, and has outlined the salient features of the process for acquiring development of the self. Next is, it reminds us that whatever has been shared so far needs to be viewed with this in mind, that without a change in the psyche, the outer world will never change. Deen as a system requires a far higher level of visionary expansiveness within human cognition, which it terms as bir, than that of any man-made system. And this is a very important psychological aspect of human mental, should I say, potentials, that the level at which we create problems, we simply cannot solve those problems at the same level at which we created those problems. So we have to rise ourselves, that is, rise our intellectual understanding above that level at which people create problems. Even if we have created ourselves, we have to become more rational, more reasoning in order to solve that problem. And Quran wants very high level of rational thinking and reasoning, which it calls as bir. And that understanding then helps us to understand the system of Deen. Because, to put it in some interesting way, that Allah is infinitely rational, reasoning, and all his attributes point to that. And we wish to become his companion, then we have to raise our level of understanding to that of the Quran, that is the book which he has given us. And unless we do that, we can be of no use to the system of Deen. The journey on Sirat al-Mustaqim commences with the willing acceptance of Eimaan in Allah, the hereafter, the Malaika, the book, and the Anbiya. And this is the starting point. Because Quran says that first you reject the man-made system, come to Allah, then bear, that is expansiveness of our mind, our intellect. We can only get it after accepting Eimaan in these 5 constituents. Despite a natural affinity for wealth to make it available for those human beings who, through no fault of their own, are created needy by all man-made systems. And that means, firstly, we have to recognize that the man-made system has created certain problems for fellow human beings, and we wish to solve those problems. And to solve those problems, in fact, to understand those problems and then get on the path of solving them, we have to expand the breadth and outlook, vastness of our consciousness. To recognize the need for the collective system of Salat and Zakat, i.e., individual acts of charity, will never achieve the aim of the system of Deen. Because humans consist of their physical being as well as their self within them, that is their thought process. And the system of Deen, that is Salat and Zakat, is the one which deals with both physical side as well as their self side. For this to take on responsibilities and to deliver on these on this chosen path. So unless we go through this procedure which was given in verse 177, we simply cannot come to that choice where we say that I will take over these responsibilities and then say that I will join those who also have taken these responsibilities on them. And without this prerequisite, Deen simply cannot shape. Bear with patience and steadfastness the challenges of any hardships and adversities which will be faced on this path, and to never give up. Giving up means that we have not really accepted Eimaan in the first place. Because if we accept the Eimaan in Allah, the way Quran is explained to us, for example, in this verse, then that change which comes within us and the experience of it, and by virtue of that, we start looking at the world differently. We simply cannot give it up. This path requires a covenant with Allah for the whole of life. So it is not one day, 1 week, 1 year, or few years covenant. It has to be for rest of our life. This process will lead to acquiring that self which will become muttaqi. And Quran calls it muttaqi because at the end of this verse 177, Quran said it, that these are the people who are then muttaqeen. The aim of the Quran is Zalikal Kitabu La Raiba Fihe Hudal lil Muttaqeen, that this book is for those who wish to become muttaqi. Outline of today's presentation. After providing important guidelines on the matter of becoming muttaqi by expanding our consciousness through Eimaan and then making wealth available for those who need it, next the Quran draws our attention to the issue of the crime of killing someone in society. That is the system of Deen. So what we are covering today is also part of Bir, which is covered in verse 177. And we should keep that in mind. And it is part of the system. So we should keep in mind that whatever we are going through today, it is after the Deen is in place. If there is no power in the land, if there is no system called Deen exists on the planet Earth, then we will be just going through it theoretically. The next verse begins by addressing the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So wherever this term appears in the Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, that means Deen has been established, and now Quran is addressing this Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen whose hearts have become united. They have come together and they do not have any differences among them. And asking them to implement the law of Qasas in dealing with cases of premeditated murder and manslaughter. In all these cases, justice should be meted out without any bias or favor. We are asked to keep in mind that there is the secret of life concealed in dealing with such crimes, and all crimes, in fact, and this is part of becoming a muttaqi. So in the land where there is a system of Deen, the crimes ultimately should disappear because people will realize that all their needs are met and they have a self which needs development. And once they get onto that path, then it will become very difficult for anyone to commit a crime. Another trait of muttaqeen is to make a bequest, a will, before death in favor of parents and relations, and this is a duty for all muttaqeen. If there is any alteration made in this bequest afterwards, then there needs to be a process in place to resolve the issue. If an injustice has been done in making the bequest, then this needs to be resolved amicably by the system. We go to the first verse of today's presentation, the issue of Qasas under Deen. And the verse is, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumul qisasu fil qatl al hurru bil hurri wal abdu bil abdi wal unsa bil unsa faman ufiya lahu min akhihi shay'un fattiba'un bil ma'rufi wa da'un ilayhi bi ihsan. Zalika takhfifum min rabbikum wa rahmatun faman itada ba'da zalika falahu azabun alim. Now, the meanings of this verse are covered over 2 slides. Remember, O Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, by the same principle on which it becomes mandatory to fight collectively against a tyrannical nation, because killing takes place over there as well, i.e., for the sake of protecting human rights, it is also necessary that giving a punishment for individual murder should also be declared to be essential. Because without it, the life of no one can remain protected, and the value of human life is supreme. Thus, in this regard, this law is given that the murderer should be punished by the society, i.e., the society should consider this to be a crime against it, not against the people involved in it. Because this is such a heinous crime where some human being loses his life, and all that good maybe he was going to do in his rest of the life, that right has been taken away from this human being. In connection with the punishment, the fundamental principles of justice and equality are always borne in mind, i.e., that there will be no question of higher or lower status in this. The question is not that of the status of the victim or the killer. The real question is that of dispensing justice, according to which every human life possesses equal value. And we can see what is happening in world 2026, where human life is very cheap, particularly those who are weak. For example, if the murderer is a free man, then the same free man will receive the punishment. If the murderer is a slave, the punishment will be given to the same slave. If it is a woman, then her being a woman will not save her from the punishment. She will also have to face the punishment. Continuing with the meanings of the verse, there can be two types of the crime of murder. Premeditated murder, where people very carefully decide that they are going to murder someone. And we can see what is happening, for example, in Gaza, in Palestine. Or manslaughter. In the case of the farmer, the punishment is capital punishment, no compensation for the killing. Or according to the nature of the crime, some other punishment can be given as against the extreme one. But the punishment should not exceed the nature of the crime. But if the killing is not premeditated, it happened as an accident, then in that case, according to, for example, in this verse 492, the punishment of dayat, which is called compensation, will be handed out. Again, this is the responsibility of the system. In this, that is the amount of dayat, if the heirs of the victim wish to leave some willingly and through inclination, then permission is granted for this. In this situation, it is necessary for the criminal that he should comply with whatever has been decided and make the payment in a good manner. In defining the punishment in the case of manslaughter, your Rabb has kept tolerance in the law so that your abilities keep developing suitably. But the person who transgresses after settling the matter in this regard, he should then be severely punished. So we can see that how much detail Quran has covered in this one verse regarding premeditated murder as well as manslaughter. The meanings of koteba and qasas, two terms used in this verse. In this verse, the first word is koteba. It has been explained about the word koteba in volume 1 under verse 2, that its meaning is a code of commands and laws. If we remember that Surah Al-Baqarah starts with ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. In this verse, this meaning of koteba becomes clear that its meaning is it is made mandatory on you. You are given this command. This law is established for you. So it's a way of saying very clear command by the Quran. In other places too, this word has appeared in relation to the commands in the Quran. The second word acquiring attention is qasas. Generally, its meaning is taken as punishment, but its meaning is wider and more comprehensive than this. The meanings of this root are to pursue someone, to go after someone. It means that it is the duty of the Islamic system of government that no crime should remain unresolved. No criminal should escape from the grip of the law. The criminal is to be pursued till he is arrested. After that, there will be a court trial and its verdict will be according to the law. It is possible that the accused is not proven to be a criminal, so he will not get any punishment, but through this, the duty of qasas will be fulfilled. So it is the responsibility of the Islamic State to carry out the duty of protecting individual life within the land it has control of. And that is what should be very clear from this verse. According to this command, qasas is declared to be the duty of those who are mu'mineen, i.e. the duty of the Islamic society. And we can see how big responsibility falls on Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. So that means this Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen cannot emerge very quickly within a year or 6 months. In order to take over these responsibilities which Allah has asked them to take over on His behalf, there is quite a bit of time involved before the power comes in their direction. Hence, in this, the countering of crime is not left to the affected individuals. It is declared to be the responsibility of the society. Whichever society has the rule of law, so under the Islamic society or a system, it will be the rule of all those laws given in the Quran. Because Jamaat-e-Momineen over here is acting on behalf of Allah. And they act as if Allah is always with them and He is watching them. This should be the form of the state of the crime and its accountability. In it, the crime is not against those affected people, it is against the state itself. See how much surety Quran is giving to Muslims within that land, that you don't have to worry. The state which has taken this responsibility on behalf of Allah, and Allah is all the time Alimul Khabir, hence this state will ensure that no crime goes unpunished. The importance of human life as per the Quran. We have seen in verse 177 that emphasis is placed on acquiring bir in order to become muttaqi. And then in this verse 178, the Jamaat-e-Momineen is addressed to deal with another related issue of administering justice in case of any murder and manslaughter in their system. We should be clear that these verses are linked to Deen as a system which is assumed to be established in some piece of land. Since our nafs, that is self, needs our physical body for its development and growth, and the human body can die, which means the end of the opportunity to further develop ourselves. Hence, preservation of this body for as long as possible holds immense value according to the Quran, which means that we should also look after our own body and do not kill ourselves earlier than required. That is, if we obviously our lifestyle is bad, then we are going to become diseased and leave this world earlier. So if we have come to the Quran, we should try to preserve our physical body as well so that we can do a lot of salih deeds. Quran states, Man qatala nafsan bighairi nafsin aw fasadin fil ardi faka'annama qatalan nasa jamiyan wa man ahyaha faka'annama ahyan nasa jamiyan. That if anyone slew a person, and see the term used over here is nafs, not human body, unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land by that individual, it would be as if he slew the whole of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the whole of mankind. And this is something we can reflect on it in our own time. Just see what is happening in the world of 2026, how human beings are being slaughtered right, left, center. And those who are not slaughtered, they are kept enslaved and deprived for whole of their life. The Quran is inviting us to fully comprehend the importance of human life, taking into account the higher purpose of achieving loftiness and eminence for ourselves, which causes it to acquire expansiveness, that is bir. This then enables ourselves to see the world as Allah wants us to see and perceive it. So bir means that we should enable ourselves to see the world the way Allah of the Quran wants us to see the world in the light of His guidance. And for example, it states, وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. What is the life of this world but amusement and play? And this is the way people take human word when they are not guided by the Quran. So we can see that how much seriousness Quran is putting on our life, because Allah sees this life as well as the life of the hereafter as now, as it is existing in front of His own eyes. And Quran is saying that you should take your life very seriously and come to the Quran, and then this book will make very clear to you your own value, which is immense. But verily the home of the hereafter, that is life indeed, if they but knew. So that means if we acquire the knowledge of the Quran, apply it on our own self as well as around our own self, carry out education, training, self-development, then we will fully become aware of the importance of our own self and, of course, our body, which is linked to this self. We go to the next slide, examples of human eminence placed within our reach. And this is not otherworldly. I have given few examples over here, I thought, for our own education and training, so that we keep it in mind that we have immense value, and whatever is given in the Quran, we all can follow it. Allah invites us to utilize the Quranic guidance in order to bring out all those latent potentials with which every human child comes into the world. And that is another important point, that once these latent potentials which are within us, and by using the Quran, for example, through this platform, we are becoming aware of it, and then we go and practice it in our own time and see the results of it in the outer world and the changes it is bringing within our own self. We can understand that every child who is coming to this life in this world, how important his life is, if we can guide them and educate them, train them, and let them then make an informed choice that which path they wish to follow in their life. And for this, individuals, mu'mineen, need to unite their hearts and strive to establish the system of Deen. And with regard to unity of hearts, this does not come automatically. We have to create a desire within us. We have to think over it rationally, using our emotion as well as mind. There is nothing otherworldly in the Quran. It is achievable by all those who earnestly seek its guidance and then start treading on Sirat Mustaqim. Next is about the messenger Ibrahim. Quran says, Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifan wa lam yaku minal mushrikeen. Messenger Ibrahim was indeed an ummah in his self, devoutly obedient to Allah, and that he did it willingly and fully focused, and he did not commit shirk, because once he understood the message of Allah's revelation at his time, he understood the formula, and he never was willing to contaminate this formula, because by contaminating the formula, all the benefits and successes which are associated with that, he was not going to get them. And he did achieve all of that. And this is our effort as well on this platform. What latent potentials are kept within man? Quran says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. And we have gone through this surah as well. We have indeed created man in the best of forms. These are all placed within his reach. So our efforts should be that once we have acquired Eimaan in the Quran and made Allah the concept as our model, then we should have some excitement created within us that I'm going to bring out all those latent potentials which are kept within me, and let us see how good, how elevated eminence and loftiness I can acquire before I'm going to leave this life. About the last messenger, it is declared, Wa innaka la ala khulqin azim, and you are surely at an exalted standard of character. In fact, this verse is very difficult to translate directly. There's a lot of meanings. We have to go through quite a bit of meanings before to understand this verse. And what I've done over here is I've just put a small sentence. You achieved the aim of your own creation. So that is why the last messenger becomes a model. In fact, whole of the Quran is his biography. People want to go through his biography separately written from the Quran, but the Quran in itself, from beginning to the end, is his biography, because he followed the Quran, period. About the messenger Yusuf, Quran says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ أَتَيْنَهُ حُكْمًا وَإِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. When the messenger Yusuf attained adulthood, we gave him power and knowledge. That is, he acquired that power and knowledge through his own efforts, made his own choice. Remember, he was born in that house of the messenger Yaqub, where his brothers were against him. They did not benefit from the revelation of Allah. They didn't want guidance. But he was the one who opted the path, that is the Sirat Mustaqim. Thus do we reward those who are muhsineen. And we know that how elevated self he acquired through his own efforts under the guidance of Allah. About Mu'mineen now, Quran says, وَمَنْ يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ فَقَدِ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى وَإِلَى اللَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. Whoever submits himself to Allah and is a doer of good, again the same word is used, Mohsin, with the same root, has grasped indeed the most trustworthy handhold, and with Allah rests the end of all affairs. So once people accept Eimaan and then start following this path after rejecting the system of Taghut, then they have gone on to the path which is called Sirat Mustaqim. We go to the next verse, 179, importance of collective human life highlighted. And this is in continuation of this verse on Qasas. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقَصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. If you reflect using intellect and reasoning without a superficial gaze, then this reality will become unveiled to you, that the secret of your collective life is concealed in this law of Qasas. Because the society will become free from crime, and crime will be minimized, and everyone will know that no crime can go unpunished in this society. Because not only that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen at the top is fully aware of what is going on, all society where there will be many Mu'mineen, they will also promote good and forbid evil and remain alive. We will not need any surveillance system because human beings will surveil their own self. Due to this, you will remain protected from the dangers of lawlessness. The common translation of this verse is, in the law of equality, there is saving of life to you, O you men of understanding, that you may restrain yourselves. And it's very difficult to draw some kind of firm conclusion if people just read this verse and do not link it with the previous verses and the verses following it. The use of muttaqeen, that is taqwa, should be linked to verse 177, and what is stated here becomes included in enhancing bir. So these verses are also there to help us to expand our vision. The philosophy of crime and punishment. The Quran, through proper education and training, creates such a transformation in the hearts and minds due to which the members of society automatically refrain from committing a crime, because they know that this crime is not against others, but primarily it is against their own self from disobeying any law. But despite this, there can be certain individuals in whose hearts and minds this kind of change may not have transpired, and they commit crimes. And this stage will exist particularly at an initial stage when the system is being established, because people have moved from the side of the capitalist system or man-made systems into the system of Deen, and they are carrying some part, some effect, some remnants of the previous system in their minds. For their reformation and in order to save the society from these dangers, punishment becomes unavoidable. Two kinds of commands will be found in the Quran. One are ethical and the second are penal. Penal means such commands, disobedience to which are declared to be crimes against the society. And by ethical commands is meant such commands, disobedience to which is not declared to be a social crime. For example, Quran says, do not walk around the land with arrogance. This is a command of the Quran, but it is not such a command, disobedience of which will be declared as a crime against the society. In this very surah, there is another command, do not go near zina, which is extramarital relationship of fornication and adultery. It is obvious that disobedience of this command will be a social crime. Next slide, continuing the issue of crime and punishment. It should be made clear that this division of ethical and penal is merely made to understand the question under our consideration. Otherwise, both affect human self. And once the level of awareness of these kind of crimes against ourselves is raised within the society, then gradually people will become educated and they will be very aware of their deeds and, of course, their thoughts as well. In fact, this is applicable to our children as well within our family. So, if we use today's presentation to train and educate our children, then and over a period of time keep reminding them that whatever they do, it is going to affect their self, then it will have positive outcome. Otherwise, the basis of every command of the Quran is on the reformation of character, and by character is meant the means of development of the human self. The penal commands are also of two types. One are those whose punishment is also proposed by the Quran itself, for example, adultery and fornication, and others are those whose punishment is not noted by the Quran and is left for the Islamic system that it can define this according to the circumstances. For example, it has forbidden the use of alcohol, but it has not proposed any punishment for disobedience to this. So it will be the duty of the responsibility of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen at the top through mutual consultation to figure out how to curb this tendency within their public. This requires intense reflection, that of the commands whose punishment the Quran has not specified, which are such that they can be included under the penal code. It is obvious that the answer to this question cannot be provided by any single person. And this is very important, that it is not up to one person somewhere sitting in a system to say that this should be the law. Nor does any one person have the right that he should be declaring the disobedience of some command to be punishable. This decision is for the Islamic system. It should also be made clear that in the decisions which the Islamic system will make, changes may be made on and off according to the requirements, and this has to be based on hikmat. But one thing we should keep in mind, that any changes, that is the overall law, must meet the criteria laid down by the Quran by its permanent values. Not only commands, but also the matters which the Quran has explained as principles or the limits which it has defined, the disobedience of their specific aspects being declared as crimes, will also be the duty of the Islamic system. The bottom line we have to keep in mind is that if we go against the Quran, then it might appear initially that nothing has happened, but over a period of time, we will go in a wrong direction, and that will be fatal for that society, because it will then cease to be a system of Deen. It will become the word of 2026. The meaning of limits is that sphere of deeds within which there is freedom to remain, but transgression of which is forbidden. Limits and principles are two aspects of one and the same reality. Further elaboration of these two verses. It is the duty of the Islamic system that it should create such an environment in society in which every individual feels his own basic right, his means of sustenance, to be secure in such a way that he does not have any uncertainty, worry, or concern from this aspect. And this is a massive security and removal of certainty from the hearts of the people. And the aim they will have in front is to raise their eminence, loftiness in this life as well as for the life of the hereafter. He should have total assurance and certainty about this. The essential outcome of the Quranic system is to bring such an environment into existence. It declares that the condition of the people in this society will be that they will neither have fear nor grief. And we know that fear and grief are the hallmarks of man-made systems. They create it on a continuous basis. It creates this environment by providing education and training according to the Quranic values, and by making the members of society free from concern about the basic necessities of life. But despite this, there can be those people in the society who are psychopaths, and their insanity can snatch away the peace and tranquility of the members of society. As I said earlier, that at the initial stages, we will face those kind of issues because this is through the transitory stage, because this society is being formed from what is inherited from the man-made systems. It is necessary to treat such patients, and until they are fully treated, it is essential to keep the members of society protected from the dangers of the insanity of these individuals. This treatment more often occurs through reformation of the hearts and minds of these patients, that is, criminals. But sometimes, as a last resort for this, the need also arises for restriction and confinement. Many psychological issues are such that their treatment is done through the perception of fear. Because human beings do react to fear. If they are fearful of the consequences of their deeds and they know that there will be severe punishment, then many will keep themselves away from such acts. This treatment method will be called punishment. The aim of this will be, firstly, the reformation of the criminal himself takes place practically, and secondly, the reformation of those in whose subconscious the germs of committing crimes are flourishing. The concept of punishment as a revenge is non-chronic, and this is very important to keep in mind. It will not happen under the system of Deen that if crime is committed by some member of a family, people go and destroy their family or arrest their parents or brothers and sisters in order to get hold of that criminal. This will never ever happen under the system of Deen. So I repeat, the concept of punishment as a revenge is non-chronic. There is no collective punishment concept in the Quran. A few more aspects of crime and punishment. This is as far as the aim of the punishment is concerned. The other aim is that the loss caused by the criminal to another person, that loss is to be recompensed. For example, a person has committed a theft in some house. Even if the court has given the punishment of 10 years to this criminal, this will not recompense the loss suffered by this victim. It is the demand of adl, that is justice, that the loss of this person is recompensed. If the stolen things are recovered, then these need to be returned to him. If these have not been recovered, then the state itself has to provide these or pay its equivalent. According to the Quranic concept of crime and punishment, the plaintiff is not a claimant against the criminal. It is against the system of the society, that is government. So individual member of that society will have a claim against that Jamaat-e-Mumineen, which has taken responsibility at the top on behalf of Allah, because they are essentially supplicating to Allah and saying that injustice has been done to me, and these Jamaat-e-Mumineen will listen to these people and rectify the situation. The state had made a contract with him that it will protect every aspect of his life. See how high sense of duty and responsibility these people called Jamaat-e-Mumineen take over on behalf of Allah. If someone has transgressed against him, including his possessions, then it will mean that the system of the government has transgressed in this contract. If the system of the society does not recompense the loss caused to the victim, then how can it be his helper and claim to be its supporter and aider? This is correct that every loss cannot be recompensed by money, because obviously with the criminal act there will be some pain caused to these individuals and family. But all these can be identified and addressed by talking to the people and have some kind of counseling in place. But the system of the state will have to devise a procedure to carry out compensation, provided that loss is not caused by the negligence or laziness of this individual. This will need to be recompensed, and together with this, such an arrangement will be made so that it does not occur again in society. It is said above that the purpose of these punishments is so that treatment of the psychological patients committing these crimes takes place. The foremost condition for psychological treatment is that the patient is aware of the existence of the disease, i.e., the criminal acknowledges from his heart that he has made a mistake. So that means there has to be a system in place in the light of the Quran where people should be guided, they should be questioned suitably to find out their state of thinking, their state of their psyche. The Quran states that if this sense of regret becomes created in the heart of the offender, then there is hope for reformation. In this situation, it forgives instead of meting out punishment and then keeps an eye on him. That individual reforms himself and society helps him in every possible way to do so. So it is quite different from the man-made system where crime pays, because people whose livelihood is related to crime, they want some crime to be around, and the police want some crime to be around to keep them in job. This is the reason it has kept the allowance of afw, to overlook, before giving out punishment. It proposes punishment in that case when there is no possibility of reformation in the offender other than this. See how important it is to value human life, and knowing that this individual who has committed a crime, if there is any hope of his reformation, opportunity must be provided to him, and the society should treat him as a human being, and that is important to keep in mind. So that means that the system should be designed and managed in a way that human beings feel valued. Innocent until proven guilty. The Quran proposes corporal punishments. That is, the physical punishments are proposed by the Quran in some cases. It does not do this to send a thief to prison where he keeps getting his food while his wife and children die of hunger, i.e., he commits the crime and these innocents suffer the punishment. The truth is that the fear due to which the reformation of habitual offenders can be made possible, or potential criminals can be prevented from committing a crime, can only be produced by corporal punishment. The principles which the Quran declares to be fundamental in this regard are: first is Qasas. This does not mean to mete out a punishment for the crime. This means to pursue the offender in such a way that he does not escape without accountability, i.e., in the Quranic system, no crime should remain untraced. It explains the secret of collective life in this kind of organized and established system of investigation. In Qasas, there is life for you, O you men of understanding. And this is quoted in given in verse 179. Adal, which means justice, this means that at the time of decision making, not letting the status of the offender influence the requirements of Adal in any way. The principle of only punishing those who committed the crime should be followed. It is not that one person has made a mistake or committed a crime, the whole village to be destroyed, as is happening in the case of Gaza, West Bank, and elsewhere. The punishment of the crime should be in accordance with the nature of the crime, no more than this. This is also in that case when there is no possibility of reformation without this. Until the time the crime is proven, the accused is to be considered innocent, and society should behave with good intentions about this. Not that you publish it in every newspaper in the land, and the media is declaring the person to be a criminal before even the trial. About this, the Quran has given this instruction that when you heard the rumor, your reaction should have been like this: this is an obvious lie, a most serious slander. Now we go to the next verse. Making a bequest is part of being a muttaqi. Quran says, Kutiba alaykum iza hazara ahdakumul mautu in taraka khairan al-wasiyatu lil walidaini wal akrabaina bil marufi haqqan alal muttaqin. So I've highlighted 2 points. Kutiba alaykum, that is whole of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen is addressed. Haqqan alal muttaqin, which means that all those who have decided, who have made an effort to become muttaqi, as quoted in verse 177, they must make a will before they leave this life. After the issue of security of life, the question of the security of possessions appears before us. When possessions are under individual ownership, for this the law is prescribed that when you see that death is nearby and you are leaving behind possessions and wealth, then you should make a bequest, a will, for your parents and relations according to the rule. And this parents and relations covers everyone, the family, immediate family, as well as the wider family. Doing this is a divine duty for all muttaqeen, and that is Muslims, who are residing in that land. The division of the inheritance will be after the fulfillment of the bequest, that is the will. The common translation of the verse is, it is prescribed that when death approaches any of you, if he leaves any goods, he then makes a bequest to parents and next of kin according to reasonable usage. This is due from the God-fearing. Again, very inadequate translation, which does not really reflect the importance and urgency of making a bequest. Next, verse 181. What I've done over here is that I have first given the meanings of verse 180, 181, and 182, and then made some comments. If the bequest is tampered with, فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُبَدِّلُونَهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. The proceedings of the bequest should be in front of two just witnesses. If some person, after listening to the bequest, makes some alterations in it, then such people in the eyes of the law will be criminals. They thought it was a matter settled verbally, hence who knows what the deceased had said and what we stated. But they forgot that Allah hears and knows all. So that means the system has to listen as well as should be very knowledgeable about what is going on in the lives of people in terms of making a will. By concluding the verse with two divine attributes, Inna Allah Samiyun Alim, it is made clear to the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, that is the Islamic system, to cater for all eventualities of making a will. And it should be ensured that no misappropriation can take place in the whole process. Verse 182, the bequest needs to be based on justice. فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُوسٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. But if some person feels that the one who made the bequest has not carried out justice, instead became inclined unjustly towards someone, then he should try to create some condition for resolution between the relevant people during the life of the testator, the one who is making the will, or after his death. So that means this system is given authorization by the Quran that if any injustice has been done based on evidence, then that will can be altered. This will not be tantamount to the crime of altering the bequest. Instead, the divine law will protect those people to whom the justice was not done. And this is the requirement of the law of nourishment, that is, Inna Allaha Ghafurun Rahim. And because Quran over here said that protection and nourishment is inbuilt in this system of Deen. That is, Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen have to manifest these attributes in their self. These three verses, in conjunction with other related verses, provide guidance for resolving all issues arising out of matters of legacy. This will fall within the domain of the legislation of bylaws to be formulated through mutual consultation under this permanent value, which is Kutiba alaykum iza hazara ahdakumul mautu in taraka khairal wasiyatu. Now, making a bequest and some comments on this. The Quran also acknowledges the importance of possessions and wealth. But to end and eradicate whatever imbalances are created due to the wrong distribution of wealth, the Quran has devised a complete economic system. Details of this have been covered in Volume 1. When that system is established, then neither surplus capital beyond needs remains with anyone, nor property. All this goes into the control of this system, and that system takes on the responsibilities for the needs of all individuals. But until this system is established, during the transitional period, it gives necessary instructions regarding the use of wealth and possessions, their ownership and distribution. In this regard, first is the command about making a will. So we should keep in mind that, as I said earlier, that this is a transitory phase through which the establishment of the system of Deen is taking place. And during that period, people will have private possessions, and Quran has given these interim commands for that period. From this verse, the importance of the command for making a bequest is clear. It is stated first of all in this that the command is given to you, that is, Kutiba alaykum. And then at the end, it is repeated by saying that doing this is essential for muttaqeen, i.e., whoever accept the book of Allah as their guidance. This is a duty from Allah whose execution is a must, that is, haqqan ala muttaqeen. For this, the importance of this command becomes clear. Continuing with making a bequest, the general style of the Quran is that it gives commands and laws in the form of principles and does not devise their subclauses. Its wisdom has been explained in Volume 1 under verse 2, 3. But some commands are such that their finer details are noted by the Quran itself. In the command for making a will, details of the maruf, that is the procedure, which is mentioned, are also noted by the Quran itself. We can see that the Quran is a book which has to be studied as a legal requirement to implement the system of Deen and its finer aspects. It is not something which is meant to be recited to earn some kind of undefined swab, or just for our own personal satisfaction we go through it. It has to be studied as an academic book as a prerequisite to establishing the system of Deen. And the beauty of this is that at the same time we not only have to accommodate its all message in our mind, but to convert ourselves willingly to recognize the need and desire for this system of Deen. In view of the importance of this issue in human affairs, the Quran itself has also noted its details, for example, in the witnesses. If someone thinks that some injustice has been done to someone, then he should try to work out a rapprochement among them. Need to formulate bylaws under this clause. The bequest should cover the whole of the inheritance. But if it so happens that some part of the legacy is not covered, for example, the deceased could not leave a bequest, or some property has been added after and he forgot to make a will or to amend his will, then its division will be carried out according to the relevant Quranic instructions. The verses 11 to 12 in Surah An-Nisa cover this aspect. Wherein the Quran shares are defined for different heirs, it is noted at every point that this will be after paying any assigned debt of the deceased and after fulfilling the bequest made by the deceased. So the Quran's emphasis to Mu'mineen is that you know better before you die that how your assets should be distributed among your siblings, among your family, parents and others, because you know their needs. It is unfair to leave something to a son who is extremely well off and then, according to these shares, give half to the daughter or half to the sister. That is not the aim of the Quran. Quran says that you make your own decisions and choices while you are alive and distribute your assets according to their needs and the situation at that point in time. So Quran is giving us full 100% authority and choice to make will while we are alive according to the financial situation of the family and relations around us. For a widow, other than the share in the inheritance, it is essential that the means of support for 1 year are to be included in the legacy. And we should always keep in mind that these instructions are for that period when the system of Deen has not established fully in the land. Finally, the issue of aim and means. I included this slide because while going through these notes in Volume 3, I came across very nice writing on this aspect, which I thought is very pertinent to our situation where we are studying the Quran. According to the Quran, the purpose of man in the present life is the development of his self. So this purpose we should keep in mind, that Quran wants us to develop ourselves to that level where we can understand the need for the system of Deen in this world and make ourselves eligible for that system of Deen which is already established in the hereafter by Allah Himself. But this development at the existing level of life is only possible through the mutual connection of the physical means and resources and the human body and life. So Quran gives immense importance to our physical body because it is through this physical body that we develop ourselves. So if we have a healthy body and a healthy mind, then obviously we will have more time and more motivation to put our things right. But if we are sick and we are disabled for some reason, and we have certain disabilities, then obviously these will affect our intellectual development and the development of ourself. Hence, the harnessing of matter and the protection and nourishment of the human body and life is also extremely important. While living his physical life, he also needs the guidance of the Quran as a means to use it for the self's development. He needs an external criterion in the form of permanent values and the divine attributes to guide him through the pitfalls of life, and this helps him to make the correct choices at every crossroads of life. The choices made in the light of the Quran can never ever go wrong because these help to develop ourselves. We should view the contents of verse 177 with this in mind. If instead of using the Quran as a means to get through the business of this life of ours, we use it just to keep reading, studying, and discussing it all our life without accepting Eimaan as noted in it, without bringing out our latent potentials through salih deeds, not joining those who are striving on this path using this guidance, then how will this be any different from that meaningless worship which we witness under sectarian Islam? This is a very powerful statement I have noted over here, that Quran should not be used just like people are using namaz as a worship and hence getting nothing out of it. And because that is not what Quran has stated about establishing salat. Similarly, if we keep going through the Quran every day and find out some few people and just keep discussing with them for our own self-satisfaction and never acquire that Eimaan which leads to salih deeds, and then creating a desire and motivation to come together like our platform to establish the system of Deen with a view to seek power from Allah's law, then we are also in the same category of these 5 pillars of Islam. This is the misconception in our life about which the Quran has warned us. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ وَلِقَائِهِ فَحَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا. I quoted just one verse, but if we can go through, I think 3 or 4 verses before this, then we will understand what the Quran is telling us. Quran wants us to follow its procedure, not pay lip service in our own mind that by reciting it or by discussing it and doing nothing about it, not even making an effort to join those who are working towards the system of Deen, then we are essentially wasting every week, every month, every year of our life. They are those who do kufr to the signs of their Rabb and the law of requital. Vain will be their works, nor shall we on the day of Qiyamah give them any weight. Because we have seen so far in our efforts on this platform that certain change takes place within us. And if that change does not appear within us and we do not verify it using the Quranic external criteria, then essentially we are deceiving our own self. Because Quran has very clearly said that once you acquire Eimaan and once you do some salih deeds to bring out your best, then that desire must appear in you where you would like to join those who are on this path. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.